Hey, everybody. Good evening. Welcome back. It is another edition, believe it or not. For some reason, you keep coming back to this stupid show. But hey, glad to have you aboard. And joining us, as always, is the one, the only Matt Lang, and who has changed and adapted his set for the fourth time now.
Fourth.
We good on this?
I think we're good. I mean,
Yeah.
I try to cover you up a little bit more than me, so.
Good. Need all the cover I can get. Trust me.
I know.
So we're heading into week 6. Definitely a little bit of fall in the air, if you will. Temperatures have kind of calmed down, which is nice. It was nice while it stuck around, but we're week 5 and it's sweating. It's like, nah, it's time to move things along. We're definitely getting there, Matt. And again, now we really start ramping up this week on out.
Yeah, the juices start flowing. I mean, it gets darker earlier. It gets colder temperature. College football is in its heyday. NFL is just starting to rev its engine. But, high school football right now is right in the middle of it. And it's coming to the finish line for the regular season. And, you get into week 6, 7, 8. It gets colder, temperatures, weather. Everybody's ready to go. I mean, this is what we live for.
Yeah, now fingers crossed from everything I'm seeing, we should be pretty good weekend weather-wise going into week 6. I don't see a whole lot of change. It's actually been a pretty nice pattern this week, so it seems like it's going to make it through the weekend. Anything off the top of your head this past week that might have went down? Any upset-wise? I know you have your opening statements, and we'll get into it. I'm sure you're going to cover some of that in your opening statement.
Well, I think a team I'll talk about a little bit later, and if we had guests on every week, this would be a guy I would want to have on, and that's Jeremy Adolson over at Monmouth Roseville. I mean, they had a big win against Princeton, and so some of these teams that have been kind of lurking in the shadows for the last 4 or 5 years, while we've heard the same old names, are starting to play good football, and so Monmouth Roseville is one of them. The problem is they're in 3A, and so 3A, whether you're in South or you're in North, it's 3A is really good football, but Jeremy does a great job. That's a big win. And there's some other wins. There's some statement games I'll talk about in 1A. There's some players that have popped up. There's some programs that have popped up. And, we got some big games coming up here in these this week and next week and definitely in week 8. So good football is on its way. And so we're getting excited.
Definitely. All right. Let's go through the rankings this week. Again, class 3A through 1A and also 8-man. We use NUICfootball.com's rankings. You can follow them on the X, if you will, at NUIC Football. And want to again thank them for allowing us to use those rankings. And again, they do a great job, and that's why we continue to use them. So, Matt, we'll start in 8-man. So we'll go through the 8-man rankings this week. Again, these are according to NUIC Football. Number 10 ranked St. Anne at 3-2. Number 9 is Milford Cissna Park. 8 is West Central. 7 is Pawnee. 6 Flanagan Cornell Woodland. 5 Martinsville. 4 Polo. 3 Milledgeville. 2 Ridgewood. And number 1 Amboy. Your 8-man football top 10 according to NUIC Football. Matt, anything kind of jump out at you out of that top 10 for 8-man this week?
Well, our guest tonight is in charge of Ridgewood, and that's Pat Elder at Ridgewood. Amboy obviously is really good. Martinsville, that'll be a team that we can kind of talk to Pat about it tonight. A lot of these teams, they're just getting better and better and better. St. Thomas More is a team that they're doing well. Again with Milford Cissna Park, Schwartz, he does a great job over there. So. Again, I think we're going to really find out who are the pretenders and who are the contenders in 8-man here as the season kind of unwinds. And we got some really big games coming up in 8-man, so it'll be interesting to talk to Pat a little bit tonight about that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So again, we will get a little more serious, a little bit more in depth on 8-man when our guest joins us in about 15 minutes or so. So again, going through and just kind of breaking down the rankings this past week. And again, we'll move on to Class 1A. According to NUIC Football, here is the top 10 in Class 1A. Number 10, Rockford Lutheran. Number 9, Stockton. Number 8, Galena. Number 7, Greenfield Northwest. Number 6, Newman Central Catholic. 5 is Camp Point Central. 4 is Leroy. 3, Lena Winslow. Wow, it's really strange to see them at 3 and not 1. Number 2, Calhoun. And number 1, Althoff. Matt, yes, a little strange to not see Alena at the very, very top there in 1A.
Yeah, and they got some tough games coming up too. Lena does. They're going to be taking on Dupec here. They're going to be taking on Eastland pretty soon. And tip your hat off to an old formidable foe in that conference, the Stockton team. They've kind of, been playing pretty solid football, and they've kind of, worked their way up after kind of some down years. And, we kind of, I didn't go into the opening remarks, but one of the things I was going to talk about was in terms of big statements. I mean, I have big wins and big resurgence and big statements. And one of the big statements right now in Class 1A football is Leroy is for real. They really put a thumping on Tuscola, and how they do things with their midline and their triple option, they just run it to perfection. And, it's going to be really interesting to see in 1A kind of what happens, because Camp Point Central, 4-1. They take on Jacksonville Route, which is also 4-1 this week. Leroy, they are going to be home versus Gibson City in week 8. That is a big game coming up. Gibson City. We talk about teams that have gotten big wins down here this past weekend. Bismarck Henning, Gibson City Falcons, and Leroy, along with some others that I'll talk about later. But, in 1A, I think it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how it all unfolds if teams can stay healthy. Right now, they're really clicking on all cylinders. Camp Point, be interesting to see how they do. Barry Creviston has a nice team over there at Jacksonville Route, has a nice kind of a throwing game with his son. And Eli Olson is a receiver that I coached at Havana about 3 or 4 years ago. And they like to throw the ball, and they're really good.
Yep. So there you go. Again, we will. You want to just go through your opening statements now, since I'll
just do that real quick. I mean, and the opening remarks. The thing is big wins for some of these programs. Like Bismarck had a big win. So big win for the Blue Devils, the Falcons, the Panthers, Arthur Lovington, Atwood Hammond. Just big wins. St. Joe Ogden had a big win. Monticello had a big win. So just big wins. So that's the big thing. There's been big wins for these teams to get to that 5-0, landmark. Big resurgence. I talked earlier about Monmouth Roseville. That's a program that's kind of making a way back up with Jeremy Adolphson. Another team that is making a big resurgence is Monticello. And they got beat in the first week against St. Joe. They're now on a 4-game winning streak. So watch out for Coach Coley Welder.
Sorry, caught me slacking.
And the Monticello Sages. And then, of course, the big statement, like I said, I think in 1A, it's going to be really interesting to see who comes out of that South. If Belleville's down there, which they will be, who are the other teams? Who are the other teams that can go toe-to-toe? Now, Leroy got the you-know-what kicked out of him last year by Belleville-Althoff. Belleville-Althoff goes in the semis, and they lose to Camp Point. Leroy looked really good Friday night. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all works out. So those are the opening remarks, and that kind of feathers around everything that we're talking about. So,
yeah, no doubt about it. So, all right, good. We're able to get that in. Let's look at Class 2A, the top 10 rankings according to NUIC Football. Number 10, Rock Ridge. Number 9, Pana. Number 8, Bloomington Central Catholic. 7 is Tri-Valley. 6, Chester. 5, Farmington. Number 4 is EPC. Number 3 is Chicago Christian. 2, Maroa Foresight. And 1, Quincy Notre Dame, number 1. Matt, thoughts?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see if Q&D falls down into 2A. That'll be interesting. I will say this, in the heart of Central Illinois Conference, we have a lot of 2A, 3A schools. Tri-Valley's 4-1. They're home this week against Clinton. They're at Eureka, who's 5-0 in week 8. So in the heart of Central Illinois Conference, Tri-Valley with Josh Roop, Billy Duckett over at Shelbyville, they're 4-1. and Coach Bachman at Eureka, they're 5-0. So it's going to be really interesting, and you talk about some of these teams, like Central Newman Catholic, whether they're a 1A, 2A, or 3A team.
Yep.
It'll be really interesting because they take on Monmouth Roseville later on in the year, I think the last game of the season in week 9 at Central Newman Catholic.
Yeah. So again, we will continue to march along here, and don't go anywhere. Probably in about 5-10 minutes, our special guest will join us this week. Moving on to 3A, Matt, the 3A top 10 rankings according to NUIC Football. Number 10, Paxton Buckley Loda. Number 9, Monticello, as Matt mentioned them a little bit earlier in the show. Number 8, Seneca. 7, Williamsville. 6, Monmouth Roseville. Number 5, St. Joe Ogden. 4, Montini Catholic. 3, Dupec. Number 2, Wilmington. And number 1, Byron. And yeah, Matt, it's interesting. They have Wilmington listed as a 3A team. So again, another tightrope for Jeff Reentz and the Wildcats going into the week 9, seeing where they're going to wind up. It seems to be an annual dance for them.
Well, again, we know about the regular guys in the playoff bracket. We know about the guys that are always good. Okay, that'll be interesting. If Wilmington is in 3A. I mean, I think that's the matchup everybody would love to see in 3A, is Wilmington against Byron and see who's the top dog up north,
Not me. I'd rather see it in a state final, 1-32.
I would too, but
that's my feeling.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, come on. I mean, I do too. I mean,
yeah,
we all want that. However, I will just –
We're not going to get it.
We're not going to get it. And however, I'll just throw a few names out there and teams that we don't talk about a lot, okay? So – Paxton Buckley Loda is one of them. Robert Boyd Mentz is the big running back at Paxton Buckley Loda. They've had a lot of success. They just come off a 40-0 homecoming win against Rantoul at Zimmerman Field. Watch out for Paxton Buckley Loda. Another 3A team that you want to watch out for. We're going way down south here. Is the teams such as Breeze Central. They're a good team. They won in week 1 against Highland 24-21, but now in their next 4 games, they've averaged over 48 points a game. And next week they have a big game at Roxana against Wade DeVries. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that goes. Some other 3A teams I think you should watch out for. Here's the name that we haven't talked about in a long time: Scott Horner and the Columbia Eagles.
There you go.
3-2. Yep. They're 3-2. Scott has been on the turf. He's had turkey on the turf. They end up, I think it was Plano, they end up losing to in the state final game several years ago at the University of Illinois. Wade DeVries has a decent team. I don't think it's his best team. I think they're pretty good on special teams. They've won the field position battle, and they've been really good with their special teams. My best friend, Eric Lyons, over at Olympia, they kind of took one on the chin this week against Williamsville. They got a couple quarterbacks knocked out of the game. They had to go with a third-string quarterback, but they're going to come back this week, and they're taking on New Berlin, another team that's kind of getting some votes there in 3A. They're I think they're 8th or 9th, and, you just got to watch out for them. I mean, all these teams are good. Back to that Monmouth Roseville team. They're 5-0, and they beat Princeton. But their last 2 games are at Rockridge, Taylor Ridge Rockridge, with Sam Graves as the head coach. And then they're home against Sterling Newland Catholic. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it all unfolds. But it's nice to kind of bring up some names. I will say this. A lot of people are talking about that Breeze Central team down there. It's going to be really interesting to see how that all unfolds.
All right. Before we get to our guest, Matt, let's finish with Class 4A. I'm going to use AP rankings here in Class 4A. So according to Associated Press this week, top 10 in 4A as follows: Macomb at 10, Coal City at 9, IC Catholic at 8, Mantino at 7, Greenville 6, Wheaton Academy at 5, Rochester at 4, Dixon 3, Breeze Central 2, St. Lawrence 1. Anything jump out at you?
Well, again, I just had my notes mixed up. I mean, Breeze Central is that team to kind of watch out. I have not got a hold of their coach. However, I will be. And I can just tell you right now, Wade DeVries says they're just really solid. So kind of watch out for them. We're always looking for that team in the South that can come out of there and go toe to toe with Rochester. I know Rochester right now is dealing with a lot of injuries. They're beat up, and not very many times this time of the year in week 6 we see in Rochester with a couple losses. Well, it happens. When they took on Chatham, they were a little down, and obviously they lost one earlier in the year.
And I tell you what, after seeing them live this year, I'm still not counting them out of anything.
No.
Too well coached, too good of a program, not counting them out. So I'm sure anytime anyone can fade them a little bit, they're thrilled about it, I'm sure.
Well, and when I talk to Derek, and I haven't really talked to him too much, it's all via text, and he gives me everything I want. He just basically said, we just need to heal. But right now it's a growing process. And he goes,
yeah,
I like how we're going about it. Our attitude's fine. We're just not real healthy. So, hey, we're in week 6. Let week 6 beat week 6, and, don't get panicky about it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, well, I up for talking some 8-man. You want to talk a little 8-man tonight?
I do.
I think you know this guy a little bit. We're going to bring in our special guest, Matt, of course. Appreciate him taking time out of his busy schedule to talk to a couple knuckleheads like us. Pat Elton joined us. Hello, sir. Welcome aboard.
Hi, fellas. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Glad to have you. And again, just I'm sure you have a million different things you could be doing besides talking to us, but we certainly appreciate you taking time.
Well, I just got done taking in a little junior high girls basketball and some junior high football, so this is a pretty good way to finish up the night.
Excellent. Pat got your time playing block,
man. What's that?
I said you got a cat all of a sudden grab your tongue? Come on now.
No. Pat and I go back a long time, a long way, and just, not to get too sentimental about it, but, we're old Lincoln Trail rivals from the Alexis Cardinals and the Howard Aces. And when I really didn't know what to do with my coaching career, I went down and, roomed with Pat, and Pat and his dad were, nice enough to introduce me to, Coach Welter. And every time we mention Coley's name, we always take a drink there, Pat. So
I don't know why we just did. So
Coley's a good man.
Your dad and you influenced me a lot with meeting the right people, and then I got involved in it. And your dad was he still is, but he was a very important person in my life. When I was growing up, and I don't know if I've ever told you the story, Pat, but one of my favorite stories in high school when I was a junior, we were taking on Cambridge Vikings, who were the #1 ranked team in the state, and we went over there to play a homecoming game on a Saturday, and we went up 6-0. Then I caught the 2-point conversion to make it 8-0. And to make a long story short, when I looked up in the end zone, your dad was up there in his Bear Bryant fedora hat with my dad, and
awesome.
They were watching there on the Cambridge Bowl, and we were up 8-0 against the #1 ranked team in the state. We ended up losing that game 50-8. and Terry Anderson had 2 punt returns, and it was just absolutely miserable the rest of the day. But you and your dad have had a great influence on me and a lot of people, and I just want to thank you for being on our show.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate you. Edgy, you'll appreciate. I knew Matt when he had hair, and Matt knew me when I was thin. So, we've known each other a long time, but I appreciate it. And it's funny, Dad, I'll bet I know, right? Because it's the same spot my dad sits in the bowl when he comes now, to watch a game. And so I can appreciate it, but he's obviously he's had quite a, but he loves football. He loves coaching. He loves helping people coach. I've got my son and my nephew are 2 of my assistants, and they're his current projects coaching wise right now. And he worked with them, and I'm trying to convince those 2 when he talks to them. I go, you guys need to understand, you're not talking to grandpa. Like it's a pretty good resource, and you just need to, I tell people all the time, I mean, when I brought Dad with me at Sherrard, when Dad agreed to help me at Sherrard,
Yeah.
it was great for both of us. And I've never
Yeah.
mixed any words on how valuable it was for my coaching career, just in learning things, dealing with some parents, dealing with some administration, dealing with different issues that way. I mean, he was unbelievable help, and Dad taught me defense. He still teaches me defense, but the best thing about having my dad at Sherrard was he was my assistant and I was the head coach, and he operated that way, and he didn't do things without asking me. And we had some spirited conversations at times, but we understood it was ball, and nobody loves high school football more than John Elder, and so he does whatever he can to try and help it.
When I got to say this, I've told you this too, Pat and Tim, you got to hear this. When John Elder calls you on the phone and he wants you to do something, you do it. You stop what you're doing and you do it. And when he asked me to be a Class 1A,
like the mafia, you got to do it. The Godfather calls, you got to answer.
The Godfather calls, and there were 2 times in my career when he called me, and I was having babies with my now ex-wife, but a great time there, obviously. But when he called me, when I had my first child, and said, "Matt, I need you to be a Class 1A representative." Yes, John, I'll do that. And then when my second child was getting ready, when she was at 8 months in the oven, and your dad called me and said, "Matt, I need you to coach in the Shriners game." Yes, John, I'll be there. Just an amazing person. So this leads me to my first question, Pat.
All right.
When did you realize, like at what age, that your dad was an IHSA football, he's not my dad, he's John Elder. He's the elder statesman, and everybody knows him, and he's kind of a big deal.
It's funny you say that. It's the season you were talking about. That was my sophomore year, and we played Cambridge week 9. It was pretty good. I didn't play. I mean, I was present, and I shouldn't have played. But we played Cambridge week 9. They were the number 1 team in the state. Terry had gotten hurt, and
I remember that. Okay,
that was a game changer for that team. But we played them. We hung around for 3 quarters, and they scored. I think I might have been up a 28-7 game, something like that. So, but we qualified for the playoffs, and obviously they did. Well, that was when you still played Friday, Wednesday, Saturday, back when men were men, right? So, we played at Cambridge on Friday. We lost. Well, they did the playoff previews, and Coach Stahl had talked about, he says, they're like, outside of you, who in your league would you not want to see? He goes, I wouldn't want to see Alexis again. He says, they're young. They've done nothing to get better all year, and yada, yada. All right. Well, Cambridge played Anawan on Wednesday night.
I was at that game.
It was before
Neil Sherbein.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it was before they started. That was before they seeded things. So they're both 9-0 and played the first round, which people lose their mind today about it. All right. Well, Anawan beat them. Well, we played Warren and the state's all-time leading rusher, Jim O'Brien, on Wednesday night. We beat Jim O'Brien, shut him out. Okay, so we had to go to Anawan on that Saturday. So we played Wednesday night. We turned around. We had coffee and donuts. We had orange juice and donuts first hour. Got our scouting reports at school on Thursday morning and everything. We went to Anawan, and we won 9-0. And they were averaging like 42 points a game. It was a hog lot, but I mean, we played unbelievable defense. And he made a couple simple adjustments that day to. They had Sherbein, they had the Rakestraw twins, they had Van Hefty at quarterback and linebacker. They were a ton, and I think if that game was still going on, they might not have scored yet. And I mean, we played unbelievable defense, and that was the day.
Were they all seniors?
Oh, this guy knows something about this guy I live with. Knows that they did. 2 things happened that day. I realized what football coach I lived with, and that was the day I knew. I'm like, well, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do.
Yeah. Can we bring back the Wednesday playoff game, please?
I
just wanted that.
We were my sophomore. You think about 1A and the kids are playing both ways and everything. But we won my sophomore, junior, and senior years, all 3. We won on Wednesday night, and turn around, 3 games in 8 days. It was what a blast. What a blast.
Coach, the thing that, and Matt and I have talked about this before, the thing that we were never able to recapture when we got rid of the Wednesday game, that Wednesday was our special day in Illinois. No one else was. You had especially up here in the northern part of the state. You didn't have any pro sports going on usually on that Wednesday. It was high school football day that Wednesday. And I mean, I just remember the excitement, kids would get out of school immediately, and you'd have a lot of times you'd have a game right after school. They keep all the students there. It was special. It was something that we lost that, guys, I don't think we ever got back.
No, I'd agree. And it's part of what made your playoff experience so special. I totally agree. I remember, like I said, we played Bradford Tisquogue my sophomore year. We played Warren my sophomore year, played Bradford Tisquogue my junior year, and we played Avon with Tim Malley and Brandon Carlson my senior year. And we won all 3, and it was special day, special night.
I was at your senior game there on that Wednesday night against Avon.
Yeah, turned it over 6 times.
Matt?
Incredible, man. No, just incredible stuff, and just being around your dad, and I mean, you obviously are your own person. You have developed into, I think, a very good football coach in terms of wing T. And when I've watched you, I've studied your tapes when you were at Richmond Burton. I've talked to you. I've listened to you in terms of your famous saying of, ball is ball, and
for sure.
What is your philosophy on football? I mean, I'm sure it's a pretty simple answer what you're going to give me, what you've learned from your dad. But I mean, you've obviously kind of learned things and twisted things and done things your own way, but you learn from your dad. But what is your philosophy in football? Because I know what my philosophy is, and it patterns probably what you and your dad do.
Well, I guess when you sit and look at high school football anymore, I think the thing that we do well is we put our kids in positions to be confident. When you have talent, you can kind of do what you want to do. That if you want to spin it, you can spin it. You want to run it, you can run it. You can do what you want to do. But I feel like we develop some schemes that and do things that puts youngsters in a position to be confident. And that's what, particularly with today's kids, that's what they want. So I mean, we don't worry about boring them. There's a lot of similarity to our drills. There's a method to our madness and schemes, but we try not to do things in practice that they're not going to employ in games. And but so we block every day, we tackle every day, we run our plays every day, and we just try to put our kids in a position that they're confident in what they're doing, because hesitancy on a football field is death. And so that's the core of what we do, which you're correct. I learned that from Dad. And then, when you have a little more talent, you can build off of that and do some more things. I think oftentimes when people are lacking in talent, the biggest mistake they make is they try to do more, when really with those groups, you need to do what they can do. You need to, and again, I think you have to focus, small school football in particular, focus on what they can do as opposed to what they can't. And my last thing on that question for you, unless you want more, is, I remember my first year at Sherrard with Dad, talk about learning things. We had 18 juniors and seniors, and we'd taken over a situation where they pulled kids up and it just hadn't worked out. So we were really committed to keeping, we had a talented sophomore group. We wanted to keep them down. We were really, really committed to that. So Dad and I were going over stuff, figuring out how we're going to play those 18. And he says, listen, he goes, no position looks like anything. He says, there's no size metric for anything or anything else. He says, figure out what they can do and play them there. He said, if your biggest kid's your best running back, then play him at running back. And if your littlest kid is your best defensive lineman, play him at defensive lineman. And I've employed that. I mean, you talk about a light bulb going on. I've employed that everywhere I've been since. It's high school football. No position looks like anything. Figure out what they can do and put them in a spot to do that.
Awesome. Coach, over the years, we talked about the influence of your dad, obviously, not just with you, but really across the whole state. And you mentioned teams, and some teams, some years better than others. Who's the one team you've had up to this point where you just kind of scratch your head and go, man, I thought we really had it. I thought this was a team that was really going to get it done, and for whatever reason doesn't happen. You got a team like that you could drop back and think about a little bit?
Oh, those, I mean, 09's tough. 09's tough. You know, we lost that. And I live in Geneseo now. I'm sitting in Geneseo. We lost in the semifinals at Geneseo in one of the craziest games that you've ever seen. And it's when you tell people the things that shook out and happened, they don't believe it. I mean, we turned the ball over 5 times in the game, and it isn't what cost us the football game. Geneseo fumbled the ball twice. They fumbled the ball 2 times, and it popped up to their quarterback twice. One of them he ran for an 86-yard touchdown, and the other one he ran down to the 1-yard line. He had 0 carries for 128 yards on the day. I think they had 178 or 80 yards total on the day. We had something like 450. We lost 24-20 though, and that's the part that matters. You know, the only thing that makes it a little bit easier. Larry Johnson Jr. and I have been friends since we were, 10 years. I was 10. Larry's a couple years older than me, but I've known him forever, and so that makes it a little easier to stomach. But I mean, we had 3 1,000-yard rushers. We had a Division I quarterback. Our tight end on that team went on to be an All-American at Whitewater. Our other tight end started H-back at the University of Illinois. And that was Metamora upset Rochester. I know that's before – that was a year. It's a year before Rochester won their first one, and Derek had a great team too, and everybody thought it was going to be us playing that year. It wasn't, and I, to this day, us and Metamora, I believe, would have been a classic state championship football game. I just think it would have been a great game. Like I said, we were that team was really good, really good.
Matt?
Well, no, I was just going to say that. What year did you win the semifinal to go to the state championship to take on Derek?
In 11,
Yeah.
we won it. We won it.
So that was a
Stillman.
special win for you. I mean, you can elaborate about that. That was a very special win, and I know for me, I had a lot of viewing interest in that because, again, name dropping, Tim. My first football experience was at Spoon River Valley High School outside of Galesburg, Illinois, with Larry Johnson Jr. And I was lucky. I got lucky to meet these great people. And but that was a great game in 2011.
Yeah, well, 11 was we're at Stillman in 11.
Okay,
but it was but again, Mike Lawler and I have become good friends, and that happened. That day happened to be my 100th win to go to the state championship, and I've got I have my favorite picture of my mom and dad. After the game, they're on the field hugging. That was a good day for our family to get there. We'd really, the previous 3 years, we thought we were going every year, and had come up a little short. So to finally punch that ticket was pretty big. And then obviously we didn't get it done, but we played incredibly well the next week also.
When did you have the big win against Geneseo, though? When did you beat Geneseo?
08. That was 08. It was the year before. We played them on back-to-back years. I mean, we were, I blame myself, Matt. I knew when we came here in 09, we were heavy favorites. It would have been the first time ever in history that they'd lost to the same team in the playoffs 2 years in a row. And it'd been the first time in their history that they'd lost that late to your, like I said, I jinxed us. Because I knew anyway, I knew that our kids didn't know, but I knew the historical significance of it. And I gave us bad juju. It's all on me. Yeah,
that surprise, hair wise, you have, I'm sure you've got plenty of those games. Games.
That one, that was that.
But I will say this, Tim, and Pat, and you talk about a neat atmosphere down at the University of Illinois. Patrick Elder and Richmond Burton went toe-to-toe. And it's so much fun to talk to Derek about it and laugh with him, because when Derek has to go against the Wing T teams, he really has to coach, and he really gets angry and upset on the sidelines. It's so much fun. And that was a battle against West Lunt, and came right down to the wire, and just a classic game.
Yeah, I told my only lie to that group of kids that night is I told them at halftime. I said, if you get 2 stops, you're the state champs. I said, if you get 2 stops in the second half, you're the state champs. And we got our second one, and they tackled us on the 17, and we needed to get to the 15 on 4th down. So.
Rough. Well, one thing, Coach, that we've learned, I've certainly learned since Matt and I have been doing this, especially when it comes to 8-man football, it seems like you just kind of find your way to 8-man football. So fill us in on your story and Cambridge story and how things have gone. It looks like it's gone pretty well in 8-man for you up to now.
I tell you, 8-man for us it's been fantastic. It's been our kids have embraced it. Our communities have. There was some hesitancy in the beginning, but we were able to get out and get some wins and get people to games. But it's the biggest thing I think about 8-man football is anyone that forms an opinion on it before they watch it is unfair. We fear what we don't know. And there's a lot of misconceptions. And when you go watch a game, we've referenced Sherrard a few times. We had some of our old players from Sherrard came over 2 years ago to our polo game. And, like about the 3rd play of the game, I think our running back got loose. Gavin McDonough got loose and Soltel came rolling over. And, it was a big boy collision. And they're like, after the game, they go right there. We're like, oh, okay, well, this is just football. It's just football. Right. And so, it's been good for us that way. I was teaching there, and when they transitioned the program, they opened the job, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. Anyway, I just wasn't sure. And actually, there were a lot of different things going on. They had 2 applicants for the position, and they'd expressed hope that I'd apply. And 2 kids that were too young, well, Gab McDonough, one of them, and Jake Johnson, that were seniors, asked what was going on with the football job. I said, oh, they're going to interview pretty soon. They said, have you applied for the job? I said, no, I have not. They said, well, we would appreciate it if you did. That was kind of the final nudge for me that led to me getting into it. And I really didn't know what I was getting into. And when football coaches ask me, my immediate response is, it's a blast. It's a blast. I've had a riot figuring it out. And you don't figure it out, right? Just like 11-man. But, when you've been doing something one way for 25 years to have to, ball's ball, but setting the edge is different. I'm telling you that right now. Setting the edge is different. So in defensively, you got to tackle, but you got to tackle. You got to have 8. You got to have 8. That the day, that big guy in the middle, they're just going to have to run around. No, all 8 got to be able to tackle. That part's different. But so I hope I answered your question there. That's how we got there, and it's just been fantastic for us.
Pat, I got a question. So when we talked to Jason Kirby about this, and he told me, and Tim, like his first experience was going to watch Polo and Ted play, and he got mesmerized by it. And then the things started kind of going in his brain about option football, and then he started kind of formulating a plan. Real quick, like who were some of your people that you talked to in 8-man? Who were your influences in 8-man? Like, who did you talk to, like, to know what you want to do? And I asked this too, and I say this, like, did your dad have any ideas on 8-man?
No, he just gave me resource. Places he thought would be good to look.
Yeah, but who are the guys in 8-man that you kind of like? I need to talk to that guy.
Well, Jay. I'd gone to the first 2 state championships or 3 in 8-man just out of because I like football. So we went and watched it, and so that was my introduction there. And then talked to Jay a lot on some stuff. And I tell you, so I got in a chat group. Jay got me, Curve got me in a chat group that was really good on putting out a bunch of information. And then I really just went to YouTube. So what happened was I'd run the offense the last year of 11-man here, and we ran the wing T that everybody is convinced kids hate. And the number one thing all of our kids, when they came into my class, asked when it was official, we were going 8-man, can we still run the wing T? Can we still run they all asked it, which I'm like, said, we'll figure it out. figure it out.
Yeah.
So that was my path research-wise, was what I could find. And I found different combinations of stuff, but I didn't find what I wanted. But I found different pieces, and so I was really committed to staying in the wing, and I'd seen some plays of people running from the gun, and just kind of figuring out the pieces we had and how to do it, and some rotations on some stuff. So I remember, and when I finally decided what we were going to do, I live about a quarter mile from Denny Derricks, the great Geneseo coach.
Yep.
And him and Tom Yopst from who's at Ottawa Marquette get together and talk football all the time. Well, they let me come sit and they talk wing tee. I just listen and try and keep up. It's fantastic. So you want to see some guys, it's amazing. So I go, hey guys, here's what I'm thinking. And I drew it up at 8-man. And they were kind of course, Coach Derricks, I still have them. If I'd have thought of this, I'd have brought them and showed it to you. They're in the other room. I got them somewhere here. So Coach Derricks showed up I showed him my formations. I have 2 pages of handwritten 8-man football plays from Denny Derricks. And I'll till I pass, I will keep them. They're the coolest thing ever. And so when I drew it up for our coaches in a staff meeting, they go, is this going to work? I said, I don't know, but we're going to find out. And we were able to get out of the gate, and Jay won the state championship our first year in 8-man. And we went down there, and he's got Coach Unruh helping him. And they beat us. I mean, they get up 64-34, something like that. But they beat us. They were better than us. But we moved the ball all game. Turned the ball over twice inside the 10 the first half and everything else. So when we got back, I'd seen Coach Unruh before the game. He goes, I love it. I didn't think you could run it. That's awesome. He goes, you figure, it's so cool and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, well, we'll see. We're going to find out. Well, that was the night when we went down there against them and the caliber of team I knew he had. I'm like, well, it works. This is what we can do now. It's a matter of refining it and making it our own. And that's what we've been doing the last 2 years.
Has it maybe even rejuvenated your approach with coaching? I got to imagine it. You definitely sound like you're pretty damn excited about it. I got to imagine it maybe a whole different feel with 8-man and give you a whole way to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, for sure. We did again because you had to do the same thing defensively. We went to. I put in everybody's got something, but we put in a tackling system that was. It was similar to what we did at RB, but we tackle without tackling every day. I made one of our junior high coaches became the tackling czar. He taught the drills that we do to our coaches and to our kids, and he was in charge of all things tackling. That's one of the best decisions I ever made as a coach. And that's a long time into it, figuring that out. So yeah, I would say so. It's been good. Success doesn't hurt. I won't deny that. We've had a good run of kids and that's been good to us. But yeah, no, I mean, there's juice in our building. People are excited about football, and that's what's great about high school football.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We continue to see growth. What's your thought on it next 3, 4, 5 years? I can't see a reason why you wouldn't continue to see growth.
I hope we do. Growth solves any problems we have. Right now in ours, I thought we did a way better job this year with the geographic scheduling. Our division, when Quest got closed and then Parkview Christian, they decided not to play, that made we got to double up in our division, and there was a better fix for that. It didn't happen. That's fine. So that has been, a disappointment. People having to play twice in our division, but that's a 1-year thing. We hope. I think you've got some people that, again, they've just formed opinions on it, and they haven't gone to it. Here, I tell you what. Funny enough, I was at a junior high football game, so we're going to go to full on 8-man junior high football next year. There's enough people around. Galva's playing, West Central's playing.
Good.
We can get that in. But so what we're doing this year in our games to fill them out is when we're on offense, we're playing 8. And the team we're playing is playing 8. And then when they're on offense, they play 11. We play 11 on defense. So tonight at our game, Seth Spivey and the guy who was our announcer tonight. They're high school sports guys. They're football guys. They go to get all over. about the fourth quarter. I said, this has worked out pretty well. Yeah, it's a nice night for a game. I go, well, I'm talking about us playing 8 on offense and then them playing 11. They go, yeah, I can tell, right? I go, you guys had no idea. They said, no, we never. It was just a football game, And so I think that kind of sums it up. You need to watch it before you make an opinion on it.
Yep, no doubt.
Pat, I was going to ask you, what do you think the future of 1A is, or not 1A? Let's use the Freudian slip there. 8-man and 1A in IHSA football. I mean, what do you want the state championship to be at Monmouth College? Because I have not been there, and I hear it's freaking a rock show. I mean, I hear it's unbelievable.
Obviously we didn't play very well last year. Our side was sold out. Our side. I know some Ridgewood fans went to the other side, and I had some family members that sat on the other side. You
had a lot of people watching it from home. A lot of my family members.
Yeah,
in Woodhull.
and Curb had it, the same way the year before. They've had Mama's been a great venue on that front. I'm not opposed. I'm not opposed to IHSA involvement. I think that would help us in some growth categories. But there are hurdles there that both sides I think would need answers to for our game moving forward. Because I work in education. My job is to teach common sense. I do not get to employ common sense. And I think the IHSA is unfortunately put in the same situation oftentimes also, whereas right now we've been able to problem solve. And I think they've generally done a pretty fair job of figuring things out, and some of that freedom will be lost. But as far as growth goes, I hope it grows. I just, football people I respect can't ask enough about it. Again, Coach Lawler from Stillman, Larry, here. Jeff Wrench from Wilmington. Those guys can't ask enough questions about it, and they understand the value of it and keeping the lights on. So that part's been good. And hey, look at West Carroll's they're a 4-1. That's a place that was struggling at football for years. It's good for them. And same thing at our place. It's brought
getting their head beat in. They're getting their head beat in, and now they're having success.
Yeah.
I think part of the equation too, that again, a absolute novice when it came to 8-man the last couple of years and getting into it. And Matt, we talked about this, just these historic schools, and Coach, you're one of them too. You've got these programs that have been around, and these schools have been around for 100+ years, and they've been playing football for 100+ years. Some of these schools don't want to co-op. They don't. They want to keep their identity. I think that's a big part of 8-man's appeal, in my opinion. Your thoughts?
Totally agree. I'm hopeful that with Palestine, Hudsonville, and Oblong breaking apart, I hope that works out for them. That's a good deal. It gets lights back on in both schools and uniforms. And it's if we were going to be at 45 to 50 kids a year in our co-op, I'd want to be back in 11. Not my decision, but I want to be back in 11. Yeah. But we're not going to be. We're not going to be. We're right around 30 every year. And right now, we're hoping to get some more from Alwood. We don't get a lot. I think we had 9, maybe 10 from Alwood this year. But to me, to your question, brings
your number up to 30.
Yeah, right. But I think we're at 34 this year because I got 26 from Cambridge. But to your question, so let's say we're going to be at 45, 50. I think there's a conversation in those two schools of, hey, are we consistently going to have 25? Because if each school's going to have 25, do we want to be the Spartans and play 11, which is great, or do we each play an 8-man schedule? I think that's a conversation that you would need to have, But right now, obviously, what we've got works for us. Like I said, we're on. I think we're at 33. I think we've had some roster adjustments here the last week or so. So I think we're at 33 now.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the transformation. And again, I don't see a huge influx of people moving back into Illinois. I just don't at all.
Well,
and I think it's a way to keep kids involved in football, and that's what you guys are doing.
and
These towns can keep their history and their schools together and their programs together, and you're getting to coach football and they're getting to play football, and the towns can still get excited about it. I can't see how that's but a win-win.
I totally agree. I get your last thought here for me, I guess. So I know I've said this to Matt before. That is something I completely underestimated when we went to 8-man football. You get caught up figuring out the scheme and what you're going to do there and everything else. But it was like the second day of camp. I completely underestimated how much football we were going to get to coach by going to 8-man as opposed to trying to fight to stay 11. Because whatever. You didn't have any backups. You had no competition positions. If a kid missed practice, you were done. There was nothing you could do. And I tell people that all the time. I completely going to 8-man has a lot. We go to practice now. We work on scheme. We work on technique. There's a plan. We got competition for positions. We can rotate guys in and out. I completely underestimated that when we went to it. I get to coach more football in 8-man than I would if we were playing 11.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. Tim, I wanted just to ask Pat real quick. I know but we asked this, last time, with our guests sometimes. I mean, how much of an influence did Bob Reed make in the state of Illinois?
We talked about that last week.
Yeah,
the whole Rock Island factor is unbelievable.
Pat, you grew up in Alexis. I grew up in Woodhull. There was one thing clicking back in the 70s and the 80s, and that was Geneseo football, and then 3-time defending national champion Augustana Viking football. Yep. So I just wanted to know, how much of an influence that had, or that you think that's had with a lot of coaches.
Well, Augustana's put out a lot of them. You go around, you look, Greg King, John Bothy. Those are just two guys that I know really well. But I mean, they're all over. The Augustana guys that played there are all over and have had great success as football coaches. And Coach Reed's son-in-law was on my staff at Sherrard with me. And then obviously Coach Reed, my dad were great friends. Great friends. They were friends, knew each other, and talked a lot of football and involved a lot of things. So anyway, my wife is from Geneseo. Anyway, I remember we were leaving we were actually leaving a wake one night on the way out, and it was after we got things going at Sherrard a little bit. And Coach Reed stopped me. And I think I stopped and said, "Hey, Coach Reed." He said, "Hey, Coach, how are you?" Da da da. And he told me, he goes, "Hey," he goes, "I want to let you know how much I enjoy," because when Geneseo was on the road, he would come to our games. Because I want to let you know how much I enjoy watching your teams play. He says, "It's obvious you guys got a plan and there's a system of what you're doing." And I think we just gone 10-1 that year. And he says, "You got to go in now. You'll be in good shape." And this and that, whatever. I know I wasn't. I think I was maybe 30, but we got about 10 feet away. And my wife just a little humility check. She goes, "I'm aware of what just happened. Don't worry." She goes, she says, "You says just check yourself a little bit, But Bob Reed stops you and lets you know he thinks you're doing a decent job. That's a pretty good day on my book.
Yeah, that influence literally is across the state. It's unbelievable, and I'm sure it's on the other side in Iowa as well. I can't see why that wouldn't be an impact there as well.
Yeah.
So,
yep, for sure.
Coach, appreciate your time again. Glad to have you on board. And by all means, if there's anything we could ever do to help promote 8-man, keep covering 8-man, we're definitely going to do everything we can to help. And just appreciate you taking time.
Hey, appreciate you having me, fellas, and we appreciate all the coverage you give us. It's been great. Glad you talk about it. I enjoy tuning in and watching every week. Thanks a bunch, fellas. Thank you.
All right,
Thanks
Coach.
a lot,
Appreciate it. Good luck the rest of the season. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. Don't you like how I can kick people out like that? You better be careful. I'll kick you out pretty quick, too.
I better not say anything bad.
Great guest. Appreciate Coach Elder coming on. And, again,
we've gone 2 for 2 these last 2 weeks, man.
Yeah. So, and again, what sticks out to me with 8-man, and you and I have talked about this, but people find their way to 8-man. for whatever reason, everyone's got different reasons. They find themselves in 8-man, and give these coaches credit. They're making it work, and that's what I love about it. And what Coach said is 100% agree. You have to see it to appreciate it before you form an opinion on it. You have to. It's football. It's football.
I've
Really
seen it up close in person. I saw it with Milford against South Beloit in a blowout. However, it was it was really good football. It was really physical football, and it was executed well, coached well. And the guys that are doing this, they're telling you, like Pat said tonight, he's coaching a lot of football and getting a lot of teaching in on the game field. And that's what it is.
No,
it's an extension of the classroom.
Right. And what I was going to say is, look, I don't want negative things that happen to 1A at all. Not at all. None of us do. But again, it gives these smaller enrollment schools and these programs that we talk about, people leaving the state and enrollment shrinking and overall population here shrinking. You have to adjust. You have to do what you can, and at least 8-man has given those programs a path and a route to keep playing. Like Coach said, and we've mentioned it with other coaches too, look, if they wake up one day and find themselves 45, 50 kids in the program, then you have that conversation. You very well, and Matt, I would be surprised to see some of those schools wind up back at 11-man.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. It's available. It's an option. These schools at least have options. You mentioned the IHSA thing, and I'm going to bring it up, and we're going to wrap up in a minute. But the only hang-up I can see right now is logistics with a state title game with IHSA. Because, look, the 4 games a day for 2 days, it's a lot packed in. It's a lot to manage. It's a lot to keep on time. And you see what happens when they start running late. You're kicking off 4A or your 8A game 7:30, 8 o'clock plus, and that's just going to happen. So if you throw a 5th game in there somehow, I don't know how you do it. So I don't know how. Maybe they extend another day, but for bigger minds and brighter minds than us to figure that out. So, all right, my friend, I think that'll do it.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good talk. It was good to get some insight from Pat. And they did a good job there. And both of those schools did a good job.
People need to learn more about 8-man and know what it is. And who knows, you might get some people to go and watch it. I've talked to some people that have gone online and watched some 8-man games, and they enjoy it. So great. So even if you're a casual fan, check it out and see what it's all about and learn it.
Yeah.
If you're a fan, you'll enjoy it. That's my advice. If you're a football fan, you'll enjoy it.
It's good for kids. It's good for kids, and the helmet and the shoulder pads are clicking, and it's good. So.
All right, that'll do it for Matt. I'm Edge. Thanks. Have a great week. Go see a game. Have some fun, and we'll be back next week. Thanks, everybody.